If nobody told you that millions of Londoners are being quietly pushed out of their own city, that is exactly how the council wants it. The government's own data, published October 2025, reveals a London most tourists never see. Working people, families, people who did everything right. Official government data now counts 2.2 million Londoners as income deprived, and for the first time ever, housing costs are included in that number, which means millions of employed, tax-paying Londoners are now officially too poor to afford the city they live in. There are 7 parts of London right now where the numbers tell a story no estate agent will ever show you, and the figures will leave you speechless. Just beyond the towers of Canary Wharf, the numbers collapse. In Tower Hamlets, 60% of neighbourhoods now rank among England's most deprived, according to the IMD25 released in October 2025. Hackney stands at 55%. Newham leads the city at 72%. These figures trace poverty's edge along the border of global finance, revealing just how close deprivation sits to wealth. A family of 5, 2 parents working and 3 children, rents a flat on East India Dock Road. Their rent soared by more than half in 2021. Universal Credit failed to keep up. By spring 2022, eviction notices arrived. The IMD25 didn't create their hardship, it finally counted it. For the first time, the index factored in housing costs, and overnight, the number of Londoners officially labelled income deprived doubled from 1.1 million to 2.2 million. The crisis was always present, just hidden in the numbers. Within sight of the glass offices, 4 lower super output areas in Tower Hamlets fall into the lowest decile for housing affordability. In these zones, 85% of children are now classified as income deprived. The impact is immediate in local schools. At Stamford Hill Primary in Hackney, free school meal eligibility jumped from 9% in 2019 to 100% by 2025. The IDACI index confirms it. 99.9% of children in the Stamford Hill LSOA now live below the poverty line. Miss Rashid, the head teacher, calls it a perfect storm. Attendance has dropped 12% since 2021. Hungry children arrive each morning, and the school has shifted from free meals to running a food bank. The new IMD calculation forced us to face what was already here, she says, but rising rents have made it impossible to ignore. Regeneration promises have faded. Newham, the Olympic borough, was supposed to gain 12,000 affordable homes. By 2024, only 4,800 were built, most rent above the affordable threshold. In Newham, 68% of children now live in income-deprived households. The poverty next door to billions is now the story of London's inner east. Barking and Dagenham was once the fallback, the place families moved to when rents in Hackney or Newham became impossible. Now even here, the numbers are breaking records for all the wrong reasons. According to the IMD25 released by the Ministry of Housing in October 2025, nearly half, 48%, of Barking and Dagenham's neighbourhoods are now officially among the most deprived in England. The dream of escaping to the edge of London has collapsed. Rents have doubled in 5 years, and local schools report that the number of children on free school meals has risen by 40% since 2020. But the crisis is not contained to the east. 5 West London postcodes, HA3 2RA, TW7 5AB, UB3 4LX, UB6 8XY, and W5 2JP, entered the worst decile for deprivation for the first time. These are not the places the headlines usually warn about. They are the so-called nice postcodes, now facing the same pressures as the inner city. The IMD25 confirms it. 351 out of 700 West London neighbourhoods now rank in the bottom 10% for housing and services deprivation. Estate agents in Ealing and Hillingdon say rents have jumped from £1,200 to over £2,200 in 2 years. Shared ownership schemes have been cancelled. Local shops and community centres have closed. The property market's secret is out. Deprivation is spreading, hidden behind glossy new builds and rising prices. Enfield, once a symbol of stability, now faces a different threat. On Marlborough Road, police logs show violent crime tripling from 12 incidents in 2019 to 36 in 2024. Data from the Met Police in 2024 links this directly to overcrowding and deprivation. Residents report being forced into smaller flats, with 6 people sharing 2 bedrooms. Stress and conflict spill onto the street. The IMD25 places Marlborough Road's neighbourhood in the bottom 5% nationally for barriers to housing and services. Trust for London's analysis shows a strong correlation. As deprivation rises, so does violence. Haringey is now part of this expanding crescent of hardship. 38% of its neighbourhoods are in the most deprived fifth of England, and 44% of children live in income-deprived households. School leaders describe classrooms where nearly every child qualifies for free meals. The old idea that deprivation stops at the inner city is finished. It is becoming permanent. It is becoming generational. And the city is being emptied, one family at a time. A single adjustment in the way poverty is measured has exposed the true scale of London's crisis. In October 2025, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government released the IMD25, the new index of multiple deprivation. For the first time, it counted what every struggling family already knew: rent is not optional. The Department for Work and Pensions briefing stated the change bluntly. Previous measures ignored housing costs and undercounted the real hardship in the city. The result was immediate and devastating. Overnight, the number of Londoners classified as income deprived doubled, from 1.1 million to 2.2 million. That is not a statistical blip. That is a city where 1 in 4 residents is now officially poor by the government's own data. This is not a crisis that suddenly appeared. This is a crisis that was always there and was never being counted properly. The IMD25 technical release shows that 55% of the jump comes directly from the new housing cost weight. The rest comes from years of rent inflation and stagnant wages finally being tallied in full view. Regression analysis confirms it. If housing costs had been left out, London's deprived count would have risen to 1.6 million. Instead, the methodological change forced the city to confront the truth. Affordability, not unemployment, is driving the collapse. The shockwaves go beyond the inner east. The IMD25 now lists 351 out of 700 West London neighbourhoods in the bottom 10% for housing and services deprivation. These are areas once considered safe, now exposed as part of a systemic failure. The property market's secret is out. The numbers do not just tell a story, they demand a reckoning. When the official poverty line moves and millions fall below it overnight, it is not the people who changed. It is the system that finally admitted how badly it was failing them. London's story is now an exodus. According to official migration tables from the London Data Store and Hamptons Research, 14,000 households have left Tower Hamlets and Hackney since 2020. For many, the destination is Brentwood, Essex, a place once seen as a last chance for stability. Nearly 1 in 3 of those who left ended up there. Brentwood's own house prices have jumped 18% in just 4 years, driven by this steady stream of Londoners priced out of their own city. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government confirms the pattern. The people who built London, who kept it running through crisis after crisis, are now moving out in numbers not seen in decades. One composite family, both parents working full-time, describes the decision as a forced choice. We didn't want to leave. We had roots, friends, our children's schools. But after the last rent increase, there was nothing left to cut except the city itself. Their story is echoed in dozens of testimonies gathered by Trust for London and the Department for International Trade. For families who relocate abroad, the difference is stark. In London, rent now devours 45% of income. In Lisbon, that figure drops to 28%. In Brisbane, it is 30%. The numbers are not just statistics, they are the difference between survival and collapse. The ripple effects reach far beyond the city's borders. As Londoners move to Brentwood, The sudden demand drives up local prices, making it harder for long-term residents to stay. Hampton's research reports that nearly half of Brentwood home sales now go to former Londoners. The escape that was supposed to be a solution has become a trap of its own, spreading the affordability crisis outward. The city is being emptied, one family at a time. The people who did everything right, who believed in regeneration and renewal, are now the ones forced to leave. This is not a crisis that suddenly appeared. This is a crisis that was always there and was never being counted properly. London's 2025 deprivation data does not just expose poverty next to billions. It reveals a city quietly emptying, one family at a time. This is not a crisis that suddenly appeared. It is becoming permanent. It is becoming generational. The escape that became a trap now defines London's future. Share your perspective below.